some people you could say that to. I could very easily say to you, Alan, I know you believe this, but I think it's more factual this way. And you'd be happy as hell to hear that because you want to get to the truth. There are other people that would fight tooth and nail to be right. So I think you just have to pick your battles just like you pick who you ask your questions to and how you receive answers.
How do you stay empowered but not arrogant? How do you stay courageous but not a bully? How do you give someone the humble pie that they need if you want to build your own self-esteem and self-worth, but not knock them down a peg, not hurt them?
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1600. What 1600 episodes taught us about success? Today, for episode number 1601, who convinced you asking for help is bad? Got an email the other day from a gentleman, and I went on his podcast. Alan also went on his podcast. I did a podcast. Huge fan. I did a podcast breakthrough session with this person, and out of nowhere, I received an email. And it said, "Hey, Kev, I hope you're doing well, my friend. I just had a question for you. Do you have any opportunities for audio editors? I'm looking to get my foot in the door. I want to figure out what that process looks like because it's something I really enjoy, and I'd like to do it for other people." And I was so happy this person emailed me. I was over the moon happy, and I don't know why. I couldn't figure out why. And it took me a few days to get back, and I said that in the response. I said, "Hey, no, we don't have anything right now. I appreciate you reaching out so very much. Let me send you a more in-depth audio of some ideas I have that maybe you can use to get your foot in the door or get this plane off the ground, for lack of better phrasing." And he messaged me back and said, "Thanks so much for taking the time." And I wanted to message him, and I might have. I think I messaged him back and said, "Thanks so much for asking the question. You can ask me any question anytime. I'm grateful you took the time out to ask me the question, and I'm grateful for the way you did it. You didn't say, 'Hey, you were on my podcast, and as payback, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me an opportunity.' It wasn't that. It was very humble asking for help." And I told Alan this. We've had mentors in the past that just always wanted to help us. They were just super, super kind with helping us. Now, one reason I think is because they saw us grinding and they know Alan is a visionary and they could tell these guys might be a little bit different. They're going to grow and they might be successful and they can help me with my mission. So that's obviously a part of it. But I do think there was a part of it where they probably get asked for stuff all the time, but they don't get asked for stuff in an aligned way often. From people who are out there really earning it, trying to earn it. Literally, the gentleman said, "I'm trying to get my foot in the door." That really what that means is I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to learn more. And I'm humble enough to say that I just want to get my foot in the door. So I wanted to do an episode on this for that reason. I think a lot of us have been convinced asking for help is bad because the person we asked for help wasn't kind. Or maybe we didn't ask for help in the right way. So that's my first thought, and we'll riff on that here in a sec. My second thought is, I don't know how to word this. I used to be terrified to ask for help. But I loved when people asked me for help. I just wonder if there's something to that. Where, well, I was going to say, for you've always asked people for help, but you also really like when people ask you for help. So I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to that. I was going to say, maybe the relationship you have with asking also dictates the relationship you have with receiving. But maybe maybe we'll riff off that as well. But I think it's a very valuable topic because I love when people ask me for help. I love when aligned people in an aligned way ask me for aligned help. It makes my day. I love it. I absolutely love it. And now I can understand why more than ever. So I thought it'd be a valuable episode.
I told Kev I didn't know where I was going to go with this one. This topic is challenging for me because even this is hard to share, but that's what we do at NLU. I was always looking up. and asking for help. I was like I was what you'd refer to as a tryhard. I was a tryhard. Every opportunity, every mentor. I mean, I looked constantly around me for advice, for the next nugget. I remember emailing my best friend's dad growing up saying, hey, do you think I should go out into corporate first before I get my MBA? Or do you think I should do my MBA right out of school because I'm afraid I won't go back? Like, that's just one example. And again, I don't want to make this about me, but I want to make it about the drive to 5 in this concept. Are you someone who asks for help too much and too often to too many people? That was me. When I say I had dozens of coaches and mentors, what I'm really saying is I was asking for help all the time, even from people who were not credible. Not credible. And so I told Kev, this is going to be a hard episode for me because in hindsight, I actually regret a lot of the guidance that I asked for. I didn't trust myself enough. I trusted other people over myself way too much. And I know some people are on that end. So if you look back at your life, rewatch the movie of your life. Whenever you rewatch a movie from a higher sense of awareness, you'll take more out of it. You know, think of a movie you saw when you were a kid and you rewatched it and it was either better or worse. I remember I tried watching Austin Powers again. I was like, ugh. Right, worse. I'm just higher awareness of
I still
what
like
that
it.
is. There's still some funnies.
It's on the line for me. It's like, okay.
It's on.
Because I think it's because it's PG-13.
The tractor beam.
Yes.
There's some funnies in there for
PG-13,
sure,
so I can mess with that.
But the point that I'm making is rewatch the movie of your life and which end are you on? The more and more Kevin and I work together, the more and more we realize that that's what we're helping people with. Self-awareness of which end you're on. Kev probably didn't ask for help enough. Probably was too scared to look weak, too scared to look dumb. Didn't ask enough questions. I was the opposite. I was asking everyone everything all the time. And I shouldn't have listened to my guidance counselor who told me I shouldn't go to MIT. I shouldn't apply to MIT, rather. I shouldn't have listened to my friend's dad about the MBA thing. He didn't know. He doesn't have an MBA.
No.
Right? He doesn't know. That's just the best guidance I could find. Half the reason why I'm so grateful these days to be in a position that we're in. I mean, my favorite client, this is nothing against any of my other clients, is my youngest client. And the reason why is it's like, oh my God, I was a mess when I was 18. I am so grateful that I get to pour into your life, your future. I mean, I was looking so desperately for guidance my whole life. And I mean, if I had you, Kev, if I had me, if I had this podcast.
Well, you'd be in trouble if you and I were together at 18, my friend. You know what I mean? It might have been worse somehow.
Kev didn't like me when I was 18.
But even if I did, we would have been. I was a bit of a partier myself. I just never got invited to the parties, so I would have to drink alone.
You don't get invited to the house of the guy you hate.
In some movies you do, and then there's a duel, and then you become buddies after that. Why couldn't that have happened?
Why couldn't that have happened? No. But anyways, I was looking for a male role model unconsciously. Didn't have a dad. Didn't get along with my stepdad. Was constantly looking for role models. You know, I was asking teachers questions they don't know the answer to. So I knew this would be a hard one for me because, quite frankly, if you're on my end, you need to trust yourself. You need to stop asking for help, and you need to trust your intuition, and you need to trust that you have the answers more than other people. People know less than you think they know if you're on my end. But of all the mentors, coaches, guides, people teachers, educators, professors, I mean, I used to just pick the brains of every human I've ever met. I've been the most curious person. And I needed to understand every answer. Kevin, I'll ask him questions behind the scenes. He's like, I don't know. It's a feeling. It's like, thank you for the useless information, playfully. But if you're on my end, you're probably overdoing it. And you probably are asking too many people for advice that they are not credible and do not have the credentials or the experience, most importantly, to actually guide you. And you need to trust yourself more. If you're on Kevin's end, there is no weakness in asking for help. But I will say this. Apparently, it is a cred hit. And I never knew this until the last few years. Apparently, the person who is... I used to say this quote. I used to say the person who's the most excited to be a student is the one who ends up the guide. And now I realize when you are acting like a student, people see you as a student unconsciously.
That's fair.
And they think you're not the expert. I was excited to... Kevin and I were at an event one time, in Colorado, and one of the guys in the audience is like, dude, you should get up there. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I appreciate you so much. Honestly, I have been studying all of this more than the people in this room, and I do know that, as arrogant as that might sound. But I always thought and by the way, this is the duality. Why do I know this material better than the people presenting it? Because I'm the one who's always in the student seat, taking notes. And eventually you do have to become the guide. So if you're at the stage of the journey where you've earned your stripes, you have to actually be the guide. I spent 30 years earning my stripes, quote unquote, and I didn't realize that I was looking like a student to everyone else, when in reality, I actually am far more holistically aware because of my curiosity compounded over decades. But if you're on Kevin's end, you were scared to ask for help, scared to ask a question, didn't reach out enough, then in that case, you really should, because there's a lot of people that are excited and eager to help. I think a lot of people want to help, and that's one of the reasons why I did have so many great mentors, is they were eager to help me, even though in hindsight, I realize now many of them really didn't know nearly as much as I thought they knew. But that's on me anyway. That's on me.
Lessons. I also wonder if, and this is a me thing, so for you, whether you're watching or listening, sift this through your filter. It's also statistically, what's the word I'm looking for? Historically, been hard for me to say no when someone is trying to give me advice, even if I don't want it. That's been a challenge for me in the past. There's this scene, Breakthrough. There's this scene, Alan, Parks and Rec, the best show ever of all time. I've learned so much from that show. There is a scene where Ron Swanson, who's kind of a hard ass, is walking through a Lowe's or a Home Depot, and somebody walks up to him and says, "Anything I can help you with today, sir?" And he looks at him and says, "I know more than you." And then he just walks away. He's like an expert woodworker, and he kind of knows everything. It's weird. But I would never have the courage to do that, nor I think that's a little hardcore. I don't know if I would ever have the old Kevin would ever have the courage to say, "Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it, but I've been in the construction field for 40 years. I think I'll be okay." Whatever a balanced version of that is, I call it expert energy. You have to hold your expert energy, and here's why. To Alan's point, there's certain podcasts that I will not go on because they're also podcast coaches, and I know it gets weird.
Can you explain that? I love this topic.
It's
can
just
you go into that? Because I go on other shows too, and it can be really difficult at times. And this is nothing. I think this is a thing, not a you thing, Kev, not a me thing. I think this is a thing.
Yeah.
But when you come, so I was on a podcast, and I actually ended up having a really wonderful conversation. But she's been in business for 31 years, and I look young, and quite frankly, as scary as this is to share, I'm certain that I'm more aware than her in business. I'm certain, and I'm 35, and when I'm her age, I'll also have earned my stripes to the extent that she has. And I knew going into this show it was going to be hard for me to hold my expert energy, to hold my guide energy, because she sees some young kid. She doesn't see what I'm going to become, or she doesn't see my awareness, my knowledge, my experience, my work ethic, the amount of books, whatever. Insert arrogant sounding thing here. The credentials, the experience, the knowledge, the wisdom, the contemplation, the reflection, the coaching, all of it, the mentors and mentees, all of it. No one sees that.
It's all behind the scenes.
All they see is some young boy who looks 15. And that's okay. That's not on them. But how did you handle that? Because that is one of the hardest things in my life, Kev, is not getting the credit that I feel like I've earned in the real world because of what I look like.
It's an energetic positioning. I don't know how better to explain it than that it's an energetic positioning of someone usually is trying to get the upper hand. And you just have to be aware of what that looks like. I try not to feed into it. I try not to feed into it at all. And just
I'm getting better at that now, but what I used to do is just, okay, they want to teach me, I'll be the student again. But if you do that long enough, you end up the most aware, and then eventually it's like, when does that fall?
Well, it's hard. Anytime it's public facing in front of other people, it's really hard because you're trying to keep rapport. That's always hard. It's very hard to do that. You have to pretty much figure out what is the zone that you can stay in. How much can you push back, and how much do you just take what is being said? That's the best advice I can give. For you, whether you're watching or listening, you have to figure out where are you potentially losing credibility for stuff that you know because you're not willing to stand up for what you know.
Yeah.
I tend to just leave. I'm not necessarily great at that. It depends on where I am. Sometimes I'll just go. It's like, whatever. Any benefit I would have from being here, I'm willing to lose just so I can go be centered again. So I can go be myself again. I don't want to have to put on a show. So
well, back to that episode we did on the trauma responses, the 4 A's,
Yep.
the appeaser, the avoider, the anxious, and the aggressor. And whenever there's an aggressor trying to hold their energetic ground when they haven't really earned it as much as you, earned their stripes, quote unquote, experience, knowledge, wisdom, whatever, mastery, I tend to appease, you tend to avoid.
I just I'll just go.
I mean, even look at that. You literally research in advance and go, you know what? I think I'm going to avoid that. I would go on and then try to, and here's the problem. I don't want to be an aggressor. I don't want to knock you down. I don't want to knock you down a peg. I don't want to, well, I have, a degree and I have my master's in business and I've started 5 companies and I don't want to do that ego bonking stuff.
Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there. Sometimes you just have to be looked down on. I think that's just an unfortunate fact. If you think of it this way, if you're a chef and you go to a restaurant and nobody knows who you are, and somebody brings out your meal, and you say, "Hey, I actually asked for this medium well, and it's a little rare. Is there any way we can get that fixed? I'd appreciate it very much." And they say, "Oh no, that's how we cook it. This is exactly what you asked for." There's 2 things you can do. You can say, "Okay, well, my mistake. Could you please cook it a little bit more?" Or you could say, "I actually am the head chef at one of the most successful restaurants in Florida, and I've been cooking steak for 35 years, and I can tell you this is not how it's supposed to come out." I think it's just up to you on what kind of experience you want to have. That's totally...
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I'll just eat it. Fire it up. I'll eat it right now. Thank you so much. But that's
Isn't
just
there
me.
a self-worth challenge there, though?
I think it depends. It depends on if you decide in advance that, look,
there's no benefit.
I might argue that going overboard is going to hurt your self-worth just as much as the other way.
Exactly. That's exactly it, because you're so afraid to ego bonk and then get stuck in shame of being a bully.
Yeah.
And what I've come to realize, and I think this will resonate with many of our listeners, when you suppress your truth, you tolerate disrespect. You tolerate people that are a little arrogant. Like that person in that hypothetical scenario at the restaurant is just a little arrogant. Not only are they arrogant, but they're just inaccurate.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the courage to shield bump that, you're going to end up suppressing. And then eventually you're going to be like, all right, listen, I don't know if you know who I am, right? And then you're going to get stuck in shame because you became the very bully, the very arrogant aggressor, when that is actually what was hurting you for so long. And so I try my best to be as respectful and as humble as possible. But sometimes, man,
of course,
sometimes it's like, listen, I remember, I'll share this briefly. I was at a family gathering, and this was a lot of other people, not just my family, but it was 4th of July. Well, you know, Alan, the only way to make money these days is real estate. And I literally, again, I'm not trying to be unkind here. All of the most successful companies in the entire world right now are technology companies, all of them. And none of them made their wealth in real estate. So I'm pretty sure the internet is pretty big. I don't know if you've researched it at all. You can look it up, internet.
Good looking up on the
Again,
internet.
see how arrogant I'm getting? See how ego bonky that is?
Yep.
So what did I do? I suppressed it. I didn't say anything. But there's a part of me that takes a hit on that. Because what I should have had the courage to say is, listen, I know that that's what you think, but the truth of the matter is, ever since the .com bubble and the 21st century, most wealth is actually in tech. The financial markets and tech. And you can look this up, and I think that you should, but, you know, the truth of the matter is there's a lot more ways to make money outside of real estate. And by the way in which NLU is planning on in building wealth is not in real estate. We don't own any real estate.
No, we do not.
Yeah. And this person is an energetically dominant person. The person I'm referring to is like needs to be, everyone knows, especially our listeners, they know this. You know that person in the room who is the most ignorant but has to be the leader? Mm-hmm. They like have to be the loudest. It's that type of person. And honestly, Kev, if people like you always avoid and people like me always suppress or appease, those people never get the humble pie that they need.
Yeah, that's fair.
And there's a line, because obviously you don't want to go over the top and have you heard of the internet, because then now you're the dick or the bully. And so I've ended up bullied a lot in the past energetically because I was so afraid to be a bully. And what I'm trying to learn is how to stay centered, but give it a little check.
It's not easy. Yeah, I think I probably would have said
worst.
Yeah, that's one of the ways. It's definitely one of the ways you can make money. That's probably it. That's probably what I would have said.
It's pretty good.
It's easy.
It's just notes.
It's just a deflection. It's like I'm not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this. But yeah, no, it's definitely one of the ways. It's one of the ways to make money for sure.
Yeah. Certainly not the best one, but one of them.
You could say that. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would just say it's definitely one way to make money.
Fair. And again, and I want our listeners to know this. If I had one weakness, it would be being more aware and not standing up for it. That is 100% my weakness. And I just don't have a lot of courage. I've been very much a coward.
Well, you've been villainized too. I think it's hard when you've been villainized. Because I'm telling you, it depends. Are you willing to deal with the discomfort that comes with those conversations? Because you're probably going to get villainized.
Yeah.
That's why I avoid them, because it's like, in my mind, I'm just going to go back to my little world, and I'll go do what I do, and you can keep operating thinking the way you think. That's totally fine. It's not my job to correct you. And I don't want you to look at me like I'm an ass. I'll just move on. I'll just keep doing my thing. And honestly, here's the truth. Maybe you're just not the person for me. Maybe you're just not the person. I think that's really one of the through lines of this entire episode is the advice. Anytime you get advice that depends on you using that advice with another person, that other person has more to do with it than I think we give credit for.
There's a team member who's been nursing for 26 years, and one of the doctors was really unkind and kind of talking down to her, and this person shared with me, it's so frustrating. I've been nursing for 26 years, and I, behind the scenes, vulnerably, I'm better at my job than all my colleagues, but the doctors look down on us as nurses, and I was in the waiting room talking to other nurses about that, and they're like, oh, well, that's just what doctors do, and all. It's like, yeah, but it's because we don't speak up. It's because we tolerate it, right? So it is a fine line, Kev, between what you tolerate and then speaking up. I mean, most of the awful things that have happened in history are usually people being suppressed. Racism, sexism, people being suppressed and not speaking up out of fear. And so I'm with you on avoid it sometimes, pick your battles, but sometimes you got to call a fucking spade a spade. And,
it's fair. It's fair.
And I'm ready for that. I want to do that. I don't want people to walk all around thinking they know everything when in reality they're wildly inaccurate and they're actually deeply insecure, puffer fishing all over other people. And I'm sick and tired of watching people who are so much better get bullied. I think at the end of the day, I obviously, everyone knows this, I can't stand bullies. I just can't. It's like, you're wildly inaccurate. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Like, part of me wants to just say that. Like, that's really ignorant. that's not true at all. It's not even remotely true, actually. As a matter of fact, that's never been less true in the history of humanity than it is right now. And I don't say any of that, so of course this is a me issue, but I know that our listeners struggle with that as well, of courage. Have the courage to call it out and be like, you know what though? No, that's not true. You're actually wrong. And you really shouldn't impose your opinions so heavily on people, especially when you're wrong. I mean, you're kind of an idiot. So again, I went one step too far, made myself wrong. But
I was waiting for it.
yeah,
It's definitely a challenging topic, for sure. And I think one of the reasons is because everybody is on their own unique relationship with it. It depends. It all depends. It depends on the level of feedback that you're willing to get back after you give the feedback.
I know.
Unfortunately.
And then it's this whole tit for tat thing, and
but if
it
it's
ends
something
up hurting people,
if it's something
really
super
important,
serious, yeah. That's, I mean, for me, it's like, okay, cool. That podcast is not good. All right, cool. No worries. You do you, and I'll do me. No worries. I'm not going to go to war over that. That's fine. You do you. I'll do me. You do what it is you do. And so I think it depends. But my next level nugget to wrap it up and make sure there's a through line of what we started with. And I think this all is very, very interconnected. Just be careful who you ask for help, how you ask for help, when you ask for help. Not just because of the answers you're getting, but the way people will look at you. It depends. Some people, you could wait for the right time. You can ask them the perfect question. No such thing as perfect. The right question in the right way, and they're still not going to be happy about it. But that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Sometimes you're playing tennis with somebody who doesn't want to play tennis. They don't want to hit the ball back. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. So that would be my next level nugget. And even to the segment that we talked about that was kind of off of the topic, not off topic, off of the topic. Some people you could say that to. I could very easily say to you, Alan, I know you believe this, but I think it's more factual this way. And you'd be happy as hell to hear that because you want to get to the truth. There are other people that would fight tooth and nail to be right. So I think you just have to pick your battles just like you pick who you ask your questions to and how you receive answers.
My next level nugget is break the cycle of suppress, and then end up volcano. So if you suppress your truth for too long, too much, which I've been guilty of in the past, you're either going to be depressed. The suppression of self-expression leads to depression, or you're going to end up exploding and then getting stuck in shame because the last thing you want to do is hurt people. And so, how do you stick up for yourself and not hurt people? There's the philosophical question. How do you speak your truth and how do you fight for your rights and be respected and be seen accurately, but not hurt others, especially when they're imposing on your boundaries and imposing on you and, walking around like they know everything. And so the next level nugget is, how do you stay empowered but not arrogant? How do you stay courageous but not a bully? How do you give someone the humble pie that they need if you want to build your own self-esteem and self-worth, but not knock them down a peg, not hurt them? And I think that if I triggered anyone in this episode, it's because, number one, maybe you've been bullied. I've dealt with a lot of bullying, way more than I ever thought, by the way. Growing up, I think I've been bullied a lot more than I realized. And it wasn't until therapy that I started realizing that that's such a massive through line in my life. And I think in many ways my stepdad was a bully. So if I triggered anyone, I apologize. But at the end of the day, you got to stick up for yourself, but hopefully you don't become the bully. And I think sometimes we're so afraid to become a bully that we never actually stick up for ourselves.
That's fair.
And I know that I've been guilty of that in the past, and I am breaking that cycle, I'll tell you what. So I apologize if I offended anybody, but at the end of the day, sometimes you really do have to just give people humble pie. Sometimes. If they're disrespecting you and it's constant, you got to check them. And don't overswing and become the very villain that hurt you or put you in pain and suppressed you. But I think there's a 5. I think there's a 5 that we can find.
You challenge him to a duel. Say, hey, high noon at the soccer field. Let's duel. Let's duel it out. Let's just have a duel over it.
That's Kev's way. Someone
do
leaves
that.
us a bad review. He's like, well,
We could
here's
throw
my address.
hands.
Yeah,
We could throw
we
hands.
could throw hands.
But that's obviously an over. But this is the other thing, too. The way I stick up for other people is different than the way I stick up for myself. So that's
Isn't that a self-worth lesson too? Because
I think sometimes it's a resilience thing of like, whatever. You can say whatever you want to me. Don't talk about Alan, or don't talk about the team, or don't talk about my family. You can say whatever you want to me. And that is what it is. I signed up for this. Or the team, they didn't sign up for this. The listeners, they didn't sign up for this. That's the stuff that's what keeps me going. But again, it's different. It depends.
Well, I would say that there's been a lot of really good philosophical understandings in this from both ends, and as far as challenging episodes, this is a 10 out of 10 for me for sure.
When you talk about stuff that's close to home, there's junk that comes out. I think it's always going to be that way. But again, this is what we pride ourselves on at NLU. You're safe. Your take, like your opinion, your take is based on your experiences. And I guarantee there's people who are listening who have had similar experiences to you and probably similar experiences to me. So that's the beauty of it. There's always two sides, more than two sides to a story.
And it's a hot topic. There's
is.
a lot of people who have dealt with a lot of people who are deeply insecure but overcorrecting from that. And this whole very last thing I'll say, I promise, if you know intuitively someone is someone that you're around someone who energetically needs dominance, you do have to sail away from that. I really need to say that. My life has gotten exponentially better. I mean, to such a drastic extent that I can't even explain it. There's certain people from my past that just, no matter what, they have to dominate. They just are so deeply insecure that they just have to energetically dominate. They can never be a student. They're super arrogant and super bullies. I'll call these people super bullies. And I just sailed away. And my life is so much better. My life is exponentially better. So for our listeners, I know many of you have people in your life that are just, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. And Kev, you've been doing this from the get. You've been sailing away from bullies your whole life.
You either set straight or you sail away. Depends on what you want. It depends. If it's an important relationship, it's worth setting straight. If it's someone you're never going to see again, I'll just sail away. You do you, I'll do me. If we reconnect in the future, maybe we do. If not, no love lost.
Well, this is definitely a strength that you have that I think a lot of other people struggle with. That's why when Kevin he says stuff about family or about relationships, he's like, I'm weird with relationships. What you really are saying is I've just sailed away, and I know it's not that easy. For most people. Sometimes
you got to. But yeah, no, this is probably one of those things. I mean, I was abandoned as a child. When you're abandoned, I think it's easier to sail away. When you've been sailed away from, and I hate, what's the confrontation? I'm not a confrontation guy. You can make my food wrong. I don't care. Whatever. I don't care. I'm going to eat it and pretend I like it, most likely. But that is a self-worth thing for sure. That is a self-worth thing.
It's a heavy one.
Heavy one, but some of the best episodes we've ever done have been the heaviest ones.
Facts.
Next Level Nation, if you want to join us, whether it's live in Groton, Mass. on March 23rd, 2024, or virtual via the interwebs, Zoom, for Next Level Live 2024, please click the link in the show notes. The tickets are, I know a lot of people say this, and oftentimes when they say this, they don't mean it. The tickets are going faster than expected. So we're going to sell 30 in-person, 30 virtual, because we want to make sure we can have even teams in person and virtual. We'll have breakout sessions for the virtual. We'll have breakout groups for the live. It's going to be awesome. It's at a beautiful place, beautiful scenery, amazing lunch. Everybody that comes in person is going to get a free Next Level Dreamliner. We will not be doing that for the virtual option just because we would lose all of our money, most likely, if we did that. But if you want to attend either one, the link will be in the show notes. We would love to see you in person if you're local. We would love to see you on the big TV that we'll have if you're virtual.
Also, if you are not yet a part of Next Level Nation, please join us there. There are 2 rules in Next Level Nation. Number 1, everyone is included. It is inclusive. The only people that are excluded are bullies. No one is allowed to be disrespectful in there. No one is allowed to be energetically dominant and disrespectful to others in there. So it's a very, very, very safe space for personal growth. I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of people don't have goals and dreams and chase goals and dreams is because they get made fun of. They get knocked down and made fun of, and bullies really are dream killers. And so there's no bullies allowed in Next Level Nation. Everyone else is. I hope that you join us in there.
Tomorrow, for episode number 1602, one new awareness can change everything. This is a lesson that we learned at our meetup on Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days ago. I think it's a very, very important lesson that is going to be one of those hyper-conscious episodes, most likely, because I think it's kind of hard to explain or kind of hard to talk through. So please join us if you want to go super deep for a little Sunday hyper-conscious episode. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep sticking up for yourself. Next Level Nation.